What's going on
What's
with
up,
you,
Larry?
man?
How you doing?
Man, you're a shaker and mover. Good to see you.
Good to see you
Hey,
too, man.
a lot of you guys don't know just how intelligent this brother is. I don't want to put you on the spot, but one of the first things that impressed me when I met you years ago, I didn't know that you had actually came out with a microwave.
Yeah. I invented the world's smallest microwave. It's called the iWave Cube, and I went to China several times to get it made. And actually, it was picked by Carrie Underwood, country and western music superstar. She picked it as one of her 5 favorite things in the world that she couldn't live without.
Huh.
We had it on the Today Show. It was given away on The View. But yeah, I got three design patents on the iWave Cube. But that was one of the things I did back in 2007, 2008. But I've got a couple things before then, a couple things after that as well.
Well, I don't think a lot of people actually understand your educational background. So why don't you give them a brief understanding? You can be how long as you want it, but I want
No,
them to
no,
see that,
I'm a very proud product of the Cleveland Public School System. I
Mhm.
went to Corlett Elementary, then I went to Miles, then I went to Alexander Hamilton, then I went to South High. Then I was fortunate enough, I was accepted by Stanford University.
Stamp. Hey, hold on. Wait a minute. Hold on. Let me get this. I want you guys to hear what he just said. Stanford University. Stanford University.
It's a small school out there on the West Coast,
Mhm.
but I went to Stanford, majored in econ, and then I came back to Cleveland, worked for a minute. Then I went to graduate school and got my MBA from the University of Virginia, Darden Graduate School of Business. So masters, but
Okay,
uh,
no, don't apologize. And one of the things is before chicken and waffles became chicken and waffles, this was the chicken and waffles king. Now I'm gonna tell you what he used to do. He said, I think, and if I'm getting the story wrong, you let me know. But this is how I understood that it came. You had a certain individual that you was working with, and you was doing these different things, and then he invited you, and then all of a
oh,
sudden
okay,
it
no,
just
okay. So
kept on blowing and blowing out of, you know,
the quick story is while I was at Stanford,
right?
my freshman roommate said, "Hey Phil, we got to go have some Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles." I was like, "Chicken and what? You
Uh,
got to be kidding me!" He's like, "Man, you got to do it." So we drove down to L.A. and I took one bite, Larry, and I was like, "Oh my god!"
uh,
And I said, I never got that. And for 30 years, I had that taste in my mouth. And I said I was going to open up a chicken and waffle spot in Cleveland. And then what happens? I started baking banana puddings and peach cobblers, and people used to ask me to bring them to parties. And then one day I said, "You guys got to. I can't do this for
where'd
free
you get
anymore."
that from? Your parents, your
Oh my
grandparents?
gosh! The quick story is that I have favorite memories of food. Food has always been kind of important to me,
Me too.
and like a lot of us,
Uh-huh.
the love of food. But one of my favorite memories of my grandmother. She came up from New Orleans.
Oh,
And so my background, my family
no wonder you
genealogy
got it.
goes from Hammond, Louisiana, and Baton Rouge and New Orleans. But my my grandmother came up from um, New Orleans
Mhm.
with in a big black. And she came up from New Orleans and on a train, and we met her down at the terminal tower when there's still a train station, and she had this big black trunk. And we hoisted this trunk up and put it into the trunk of our car. We took our grandmother back to the house, and we opened up this trunk, Larry, and there was a lot of paper on top of it. So we removed the paper. Then there was dry ice. We removed the dry ice, but underneath that dry ice, Larry, there was crab, crawfish,
What?
all kinds of seasonings ready for a gumbo. There, it took her 2 days to cook that gumbo. It was the best gumbo I've ever tasted, and I still remember that. I mean, but that was that's the late '60s before she passed away. I
now,
never forget that.
now, since you went back there, what was the community like during that
Well,
time?
I mean, I lived on Dove Avenue in Mount Pleasant. Went to Corlett, and then went to Miles and a couple other places. But in that area, I mean, that there was a definite strong sense of community because everybody knew everybody
So
on
you
the
knew your
street.
neighbors.
Oh, absolutely.
And I remember back then when we moved over in that area, because that's an area that my mom also bought one of her first homes. And we was on Cornell, not far from Dove.
Not far.
Yeah, far from Dove.
You had
Grass was
Fazio, you
green.
had Fazio's,
Yeah, yeah, right there.
Fazio's,
It's a church now.
right,
It's a
Mark, yeah,
church right there.
right,
Yeah, right. Mark, yeah, Mark is there. And I remember that community. Man, it used to be the corner hardware store
Oh,
there.
Odzinski's?
Right, right. And then if you go up further, Harvard, there was a gentleman, I can't think of his name, but he had a corner store. He used to call that man, he was so mean. But that's where my mom used to always send me over to get the milk and everything else like that.
Well, think about that. I mean, there were corner stores, and the same thing. You would didn't have to go far to get your milk and things
Right.
like that. And then when I was going, well, I would walk from Dove all the way to Miles. I went to Miles Elementary for a program that the Cleveland Public School System had. But
Man, we used to
we,
walk home for lunch then. And
oh yeah,
oh man, you weren't them some good times,
man,
man.
absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely. So yeah, so that's the love of food started back in 1968 when my grandmother brought up that trunk from New Orleans. But I watched my mother and father cook in the
Mm,
kitchen, so I was always observant of what they did, and
mm.
I never got in there with them, but I was always peppering them with questions. Mom, what did you do? How did you cook your chicken? What did you do? She was like, okay, baby, this is what I did, you know. So I watched her make peach cobbler, and you could tell from my size, I'm not the smallest brother in the world, so I enjoyed
Well,
eating, and so I always figured, I said, at least let me learn how to cook, so in case if I met a woman that she didn't know how to cook as well as my mom, I could get down like that.
now I'm gonna tell you guys something. I was watching Facebook one time, and what Phil did, he came across with these pies. This is what he's doing now. And I seen all these pies come across. Now here we go. And I'm trying to lose weight myself, and I know all these carbs. But then every time I pop up that I see him again, 'cause he's my Facebook friend. I said, okay, I had enough. So I called Phil. I said, Phil, look, I'm having something up here. I need you to bring some of them pies. Remember that, Phil? Yeah, yeah. Hey, but no, it had that old. See, because I'm from West Virginia, Phil.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
and down. That's how we cook. Okay, and I tasted some of them, you guys. And look, this is not a commercial because we're going somewhere with this. I tasted some of those pies, and I said, "Oh my God, this is my grandmama's recipe."
Well, there
Okay,
is interesting. Interesting that you should say that because
something's wrong where? Okay, kid. Okay, go ahead. Okay, is it good now? I'm sorry, we hit a little mic. Is it still?
okay.
Oh,
All right. Okay.
okay.
So it's interesting that you should say that about the fact that my pies connected you back to West Virginia because I always told my staff to fill the fire. I said we don't sell food to fill the fire. We sell memories.
Uh,
And that is so important because food is like most communities, like most cultures, food is a central part of that. And my connection to food has always been the memories of my grandmother coming up from New Orleans, or my mother cooking in the kitchen, or watching my father make potato salad. So those memories are what we connect to. We use food as a connective tissue to hold our families together to something that we can center around and make happen. And so for me, I'm always striving. Well, I'm always striving
Well, Phil,
to
you
make.
are a shaker and a mover, though, man. Because I remember you when you've had a lot of different visions and different plans, and usually somehow, whether it's I'm always seeming to connect with you with that because what I do, I follow you, and I'm gonna tell you, I admire Black excellence. And if you know anybody that knows me in the community, you know how many people I support with their businesses because that's what I've always promoted. I've always promoted the excellence in our people. I love it. I love it. This man right here, I know for a fact. I know what he has done because I have been a part of a lot of those things with you, and whether it was supporting you or whether I was just called not to say, "Hey, man, you're doing a great job." I've always made it a point to do that, not just to you, but to anybody in that community. I think that's what we should do. We should always, acknowledge those things as we move forward in our community. But I want to get to something else because you have to go pretty soon. I know you do this. I know I'm rushing through this, but I want to go to some point. A lot of you guys don't know. And Phil, I'm gonna tell you one thing I do know about Phil. Okay, and this right here. Okay, something wrong with that mic? So we need to change the mic real quick. Okay, let's just change it out. We're gonna change it out. Okay, sorry about that. But one of the things that I do know about Phil, couple of things. He don't like to drag up the past. I'm gonna tell you right now, he hates that. He said, I don't even want to open up no old wounds and anything. But what I also know, we can be very brutal to each other when we think we know the story and we don't know the story. I had one hell of a time getting this brother to even come on the show because he said, no, I don't want to do this. I don't want, but I said, no, you, me, Sam, a lot of other entrepreneurs in the community, we're experiencing the same issues, the same problems. Now, I'm not going to go into depth, but I'm going to tell you what I'm talking about. And I'm going to be very general with this so I don't put nobody on the spot. And I'm not going to, I don't
Call
want
out
to,
any
yeah, I'm not
names.
calling out no names. But let's suppose you have a nightclub. In that nightclub, you need to hire a staff from your community because most likely somebody from Westlake is not going to come all the way to the east side to
Probably
help
not.
support you. Very rare if they do. In doing so, you're going to need cooks, you're going to need waitresses, and you're also going to need bartenders. This is most likely a cash system. Okay. And then at the same time, because of our community, sometimes there's a threat of robbery. So you have to hire good security. You have to check individuals when they're coming into your establishment. Okay. If you're dealing with liquor, you got to make sure that you get so many pours out that bottle. Am I right? When you bring chicken in, when you bring fish in, everything is portioned so that you can make a profit because we have to pay for that. That's not free. Okay. And a lot of people, they mistake that for being money, that
Well,
we're rich.
yeah,
you
it's
know,
interesting that you should say that. And again, without going into too much detail about the past, but that I call the fact that black entrepreneurs, we face what I call a black tax. That sometimes the perception of activity is perceived as profit. That
Mm-hmm.
you see all this money coming through on the front end, but people don't realize that there's a lot of money going on the
Woo.
back end from wages and
Wait a
taxes
minute.
and
We have to
cost of
pay.
goods, cost of goods, and
Exactly.
everything like any other business. So when things like shrinkage happen,
Mhm.
it impacts us because you hope it doesn't happen, but statistically, and again, this is just my gut feeling. I won't say statistically. My gut feeling is that black people experience the shrinkage and the theft and things like that at a much higher rate. And why that
Gut
is,
feeling, that's a fact.
well,
No, that's a fact. No,
I'm
I'm
not.
sorry. I call it like it is. That's a fact. And because I've had so many businesses, I've experienced that. I've owned Bass Q, I've owned car dealerships, I've owned 3, 4 restaurants. Everything I do, I have to depend on my community. Continue. Because
Well,
I don't think that, here, I want to say one thing. Do you realize that when you pay income tax and we have to pay you, so every tax on your check, do you know we have to match that?
you
They
have
don't.
to.
Hey, yeah. Do you realize that if we play music in our nightclubs, there's a royalty tax that we have to pay if we have a nightclub? Do you realize that all those shots are counted that we have to pay if we own a bar? Do you realize that sometimes our meat spoils, our bread get molded, not because we are not buying, but sometimes, buying fresh produce, fresh bread, sometimes there's a rotation that occurs before it even gets to us. You know what the rotation
Mhm.
is. They'll go to the high end places, rotate their stock, and then it comes to the inner city, okay? Because they demand a certain amount of quality, okay? So we don't have one problem, we have several problems, okay?
Well, let's call them challenges.
Okay, well, we can call it challenges. You're polite, but what I'm trying to say to you is that we deal with some issues here, you guys. And one of the things that I think is after we fail, then you want to put us down, say that we're ignorant, we don't know how to do business, and those are some of the things that I hear. That is not a challenge.
Well,
That's a criticism.
and that's a valid point. I mean, there were a lot of things that were said about me when Phil the Fire went down,
Me as well.
and it's unfortunate. I mean, I was the face of Phil the Fire. I am Phil the Fire. I mean, that I can't get around, and people still remember me, and I'm always humbled by the fact that people remember me 10, 12 years later. But the point is that when people see you, they put you out there, and then everybody wants to be around you when things are going
Oh,
well,
don't they?
but when things go down, there's a lot of things that are based on rumors, gossip, and
Yep.
things like that have no bearing on the fact. And I'll just give you one example. When Phil the Fire Downtown went down, everybody assumed that somehow that I was the reason it didn't, and it was the furthest thing from the truth. The fact is that I had hired a lawyer, and I won't say his name, but I hired him to do what's called due diligence on my investor. And he went down to Atlanta, and his eyes got so big because he thought that this guy was loaded with money, that he took this guy on as a client. And so what happened was that when it turned out that this guy in Atlanta was a fraud, I was left holding the bag. And I went
Mm.
to him. I said, "Yo, dude, what's up?" I said, "You got to help me out." He's like, "Well, I can't help you because you're both my clients." I'm like, "What the?
That
How,
was well.
how does that happen?" But anyway, but people don't know that story.
Mm.
That I did all the things that I was supposed to do. Help me out. I hire a lawyer. Help me out. help me understand, should I go to bed with this investor, and instead he goes down and goes to Atlanta and finds out that the guy Kirk Wright is supposedly worth several $100 million, and what does he do? He turns the tables, and he becomes a client of this attorney's hearing.
So the attorney was watching out for the attorney. He wasn't watching out for you.
No, what's not for me. But that's the story that doesn't get out, because if he had just done his due diligence, I would have never opened up downtown, because he would have done his due diligence and said that, hey, Phil, this guy's no good. But he was so thirsty for business that he was willing to compromise my situation. But when it all went down, he was nowhere to be found. So those are just little things that happen that people don't hear that side of the story. So they just fill the vacuum with all kinds of innuendo that Phil was this, Phil was that. I mean, I've heard it all, and it's unfortunate, but that's the reality of
Phil. I think one of the problems that you had was trusting with good reason to trust, but it still was trusting.
Well, that is true. That and it's interesting. That's a very good point, and that is also part of what we do sometimes as Black entrepreneurs.
We don't have a lot of choices.
Well, yeah, but
because sometimes it's difficult to get other individuals to work with us, and we're limited with some of the resources because of the challenges that we face in being an entrepreneur starting out.
No, that is true. That there's no doubt about it. And so you do place a lot of trust because you're only one person, and
correct.
You have to, in order to grow, you have to delegate, you have to trust.
Exactly.
And sometimes people betray that trust. And but what I find interesting, and again, without saying any names, is that in a lot of my Fill the Fire iterations, that there were people who clearly stole from me.
Well, wait a minute. That's where we was getting at, because I did know you did attempt to come back.
Right.
Again, that was in Beechwood. I remember that.
And
nice
that
place.
Nice place.
Yeah, and everything is like that. But you said something to me earlier, and you don't have to say names, but you said they had plotted coming in the door. Could you repeat that?
Absolutely. People as we hired, people coming through the door already scheming on how they were going to get over. And the reason I know this is because people told me this at the end. And people said, well, so and so was stealing from me. I said, well, why did you tell me? Well, I'm not going to be a snitch. I'm like, okay, yeah, but
we need snitches. We need snitches, because what you're doing, you're hurting yourself. When you don't acknowledge a wrong, you're part of that wrong. I'm sorry, that's not snitching.
Yeah,
that's called integrity.
Yeah, or self-preservation.
Exactly.
Self-preservation. So in the Beechwood situation, clearly, I mean, our top line number was
great. And if you had a multicultural coming in there,
yeah,
it was, and the food was the bomb.
Thank you very much.
It was the bomb.
But what happened is that people were stealing cash, time, inventory.
I know.
And here's one scheme, and again, I won't go into details, but the server, we had an all you could eat buffet. I mean, all you could eat. I
remember that. That was to be on Sunday.
On Sundays.
Now I know it. I used to go.
This was on par with. I would say this is probably on par, not the same level, but we tried to emulate Pier W, because that's one of the places I love Pier W.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with emulation. But people, what servers were doing was that they were taking, because it was all you could eat, they would present the patrons with a check that had already been paid for by someone else, and present that same check to them. They would pay with cash.
Oh my God!
And they're like, "Oh, okay, so I don't have to give that to Phil. I can keep that $19.99 or that $24.99.
Oh man, you can make a couple $100, and if you do that times 5, that's $1,000 plus.
Hold on. Well, 5 times 5 is 100.
Right.
But here's the thing, Larry. Somebody told me, well, so and so was on their Facebook page talking about, I'm going to work today because I'm going to go make rent. They were coming to Fill the Fire to work and taking money off the top, and that's how they were doing it. But so if you take $100 a week and you do it 4 days a week, that's $400.
But wait a minute, multiply that by 3 to 4 people that's doing this. See, you don't realize the damage that you're doing. You just see it as one. And I want to tell you what was happening to me, because that happened. There was a barmaid that the entire community knew was a thief. Everybody knew she had a reputation of that. Do you know they sent her into my place? And then they said, you should hire her. This is when I owned Basque. They said, you should hire her. Well, I was green. I didn't know. I had the same problem you had. I trusted.
Right.
I trusted. And this is from people that I trusted. Okay. What she did the first day she got there, she stole $1,800 from me.
Dang.
18. She didn't just hit me, she
Hit you
knocked
hard.
me out. And then walked out the door and said, I quit.
Right. You got Debo.
Oh, yes, I really did. But and wait a minute. See, I was in a business that I had no experience of. And everybody was coming to me. I was invited to this. My phone was jumping off the hook. I was the big man.
Right.
I had so many confrontations there that it was unbelievable. I did not know what the hell I was doing, but it was needed. See, you only burn me one time. I don't trust until I see that you're worthy of trusting. And one of the things that I do know, Phil, is this. I know you got screwed because they're not just screwing you. They line up individuals that are shakers and movers, individuals that are go-getters, individuals that are visionaries. Our community, the people that we trust the most, those are the ones that are the biggest, sometimes our biggest threat.
Right.
So now we got two entities that we're dealing with. One, we black, which is a whole nother topic.
Right.
Okay. Right. So we already have, not to me, it's a plus, but to others, it's a means for them to attack. It's a way for them to belittle and say that I don't know how to do something, which then creates a negative image of who I am. Okay. Then we got our community. We got elected officials in certain areas that even make it worse because what they do, they'll come in sometime and shake you down, or they'll shake down your community, which makes it harder for you to get the services that you need to operate. So we got another area. So now we got the people that we're hiring to steal this from us. We got our community that won't support what we're trying to do because they're trying to take care of themselves. And then we got other races that think that we're inadequate to do what we do. How do you survive in something like that? So I want to talk about a solution now.
Okay, so here's the thing though. So the first thing that you pointed out is that one, if you're not experienced, you need to surround yourself with people who do have that experience that you can trust. It's a delicate balance. I'll grant you, but if I could go back in time, I would have slowed down my growth at Shaker Square because we were growing like weeds. I mean, it was explosive. Yeah. So that was. So I'm gonna turn it not on to the community because the community was the source of that growth. I mean, we had people from all over all over Northeast Ohio. In fact, we won an award from C Magazine called Best Food for World Peace because we had the most diverse dining room in Northeast Ohio. I mean, we had people from all over. But part of it, I'm going to put the onus on me, the fact that I could have slowed down a little bit to take the time to have people gain my trust as opposed to me giving them my trust. So that was part of the thing that when you're in that heady situation and things are growing, to slow it down so that people have to earn that trust. So I understand what you're saying, but when you're growing, you're so eager, you give people that trust as opposed to taking the time. And if you slow it down by a couple months, you actually can sort of weed out the people who aren't trustworthy. And so that's the first thing. The second thing that I will say is that the solution is that, I mean, obviously there are people who are doing it well, and I give people credit, and I'll call them out, like
Angie's
right,
yeah, he killed it. Yeah, Akeem is very sharp though. He's
Akeem, he and the brother on Harvard Wine and Grill. Claude's doing it, and then Claude. Johnny Hutton on at Zanzibar.
Yes.
So then there are chefs like Stacy Stoudemire. She's doing well. She's doing her thing. She's doing her thing. So there are people who have figured it out, and it's not that it's impossible to do, but in certain situations, and I'll just say that, and I'll put Phil the Fire, that I grew in both situations, Shaker Square and Beechwood. The growth was explosive.
But they had their challenges because Akeem got shot, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. One of his own, I think it was by somebody that he had hired that tried to take him out. So no, he still had those same challenges. What he did not do was quit, but maybe his pockets was a little longer. So I'm not saying that it's impossible, but what you pay to succeed is what the challenge is.
And again, that's why I go back to the black tax. That is something that you don't see the restaurants owned by white folks go through that same thing
No, you
necessarily.
don't.
Not at the same.
Because they get it. Sometimes what they do, they're hey, and I don't want to say I think it's a mentality because it's just like you did name some black entrepreneurs that get it, but maybe he had a team around him that also got it. Maybe they were educated and
Well,
see
no.
into the in the business, you
Okay,
know.
and what I'll say is that, and I know that that that, for example, with Akin over at Zanzibar, Akin had a great team,
That's right.
great team, and that's what I commend and his vision for what he did. He focused on what he did best, and that was build systems,
There you go.
and he built them and was able to replicate that success. So that's where we. I'm the first one to say I made some. I personally, I'm not blaming staff. I'm not blaming. I made some mistakes, and I have to
That's a bit,
learn.
that's your first education
Right.
when you can look inward. See, we look out, we want to blame others. I commend you for that because that's what I learned. And that's why I like to work on solutions instead of, like you said, I don't want to make this a bitch party. It has to be about positive images. It has to be about making sure that we understand what it takes to move to that next level. And I want to hold on. I want to get there, but you got something else on the market that I definitely have to let these individuals know. Tell them about your vitamins, man. Let's get to that. Okay, let's not
So I
forget that.
appreciate that. Okay, what I'm doing is launching a dietary supplement line for people of African ancestry, and it's called Vitamins with two A's, and for the double A stands for African ancestry. And what we're trying to do is focus on two major problems for nutritional deficiencies with people with higher levels of melanin in their skin. People like yourself
Mm-hmm.
and myself, black people, we have vitamin D deficiency a lot. It's as much as 80 to 90% among black people because of the melanin prevents the sun from being absorbed by our skin and converted into vitamin D, which is why they call it the sunshine vitamin. And then, unfortunately, we also have a mission to try to uh, reduce black infant and maternal mortality rates because black babies and black mothers die at anywhere between 2 to 4 times the rate of white babies and mothers. 2 to 4 times
That's
the
a
rate.
lot. That's a
And
lot.
so we have a 501c3 called Help Us to Help Us.
Mhm.
You can go to Help Us to Help, and it's Help Us.
Now that's why we're connecting here because like what I want to do. Here we go. I want to support that. It's important.
Right.
Continue.
And it's Help Us, HELPUS, the number two, helpus.org.
Mhm.
Help us to helpus.org. That's our 501c3, where we're making available to any woman that goes to that website starting in January, that they can get a year supply of prenatal vitamins free.
Put that website out there again, man.
Help us to helpus.org, HELPUS, the number two, HELPUS.org. Help us to helpus.org. And starting in January, any woman who wants prenatal vitamins, but particularly black women, will be able to get free a year supply simply by asking. We're not asking medical questions like if you need it. And because the science shows that women who take prenatal vitamins before they're pregnant have developed nutrients in their bodies that help little things like the formation of the baby's brain.
Mm. And you
And
know, it's funny you should say that. A lot of our kids are now being born with ADHD and other, mental deficiencies and things like that. And I think it does lead back to the mom's nutritional system
well,
and how they and the elements in our air and different things
there's
like
no
that.
question here's the unfortunate fact. Again, I'll flip it around, not just talk about entrepreneurship, but with racism and so the dynamics of being black in America. Black women are more likely to receive little to no prenatal care at 3.8 times the rate of white women. Like talking about no prenatal care. So you're carrying a baby for 9 months with no prenatal care. Larry, that's
Unheard of.
bonkers. That's
And one
but,
of the
but
things
wait a minute, I
is
gotta say this last thing. In Ohio, Ohio has the second highest rate of black infant mortality. And we've got Cleveland Clinic and University Hospitals in our backyard, two of the world's top hospitals,
Phil,
and yet
is that a direct result of what we don't do?
it's a direct result of what we don't do, and also direct of lack of access to resources.
And knowledge and
and
education.
and that's what we want to
Yeah,
try to do with help us to
education,
help
brother.
us by making those vitamins free. Just say, look, you want them, no questions asked, you got them. Sorry. And then the second thing is we want to make our website a source where people can go in, because there are all kinds of studies that
And what's that
show
website again? I want you to say it one more time.
help us, the number two, helpus.org, HELPUS, the number two, HELPUS.org. And starting in January, women of any walk of life can go there and request that. And so we're taking donations. Today is Giving Tuesday. We're doing the show on Giving Tuesday. So you can also make a tax
Now,
deductible charitable donation to
now I'm
helpus.org.
gonna tell you why this is important. I keep saying the same thing. We don't own enough to have our voices heard. We're electing officials that don't support our agendas. This has to stop. What you're going to see on this program consistently is individuals like Phil. I'm trying to promote Black excellence. Now, we need all races. Let's not get this twisted. I love each and every race that's out there because I could not be doing what I'm doing without the support of all individuals. However, there is nothing wrong with first taking care of those in your own community and your house. Okay, that's important. That's first. It's like riding a plane. Before
Put
you can
that
save
oxygen mask on.
anywhere, exactly. Before you can save anyone, you got to put that oxygen mask on yourself. Phil, do you? I know you got to go, so I'm
Right.
not going to hold you. I'm going to have you back on my show because there's so much that me and you talk about. And then, plus, I wish you had brung some of that pie, man. You know, I ain't feeling that, bro. Next time you come here, hey, look, hey, wait. And I know my wife there, she gonna be talking about that brother. You don't ain't no. But now, real talk, Phil.
No,
Thank you
no,
for
no,
taking the
Larry, man,
time
no,
out,
I
man. And
appreciate it,
listen,
man. Now we got a lot more to talk
yeah, we
about.
got a lot more.
But I do want to close it on a positive note.
Okay, that'll
That
work.
one of the things, that yeah, there's a black tax, but there's also a black collective of support,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I continue to get from people who still remember me as Phil the Fire.
Well, I
And
love
it's
you,
been
man,
years,
and I mean that.
I appreciate that. And
Yeah.
then people. I mean, I was just at the doctor's office today. She looked at me. She said, "I know you." I said, "Yes, Denzel Washington." She said, "No, no, no." I said, "People confuse me all the time." But then she said, "Aren't you Phil?" And I mean, Larry, that is such a
That's
wonderful thing.
rewarding.
It's rewarding.
Mhm.
And the fact that, and again, I'll leave on this, is that a lot of people sometimes see my face, and what they're transported back to is just like you said. They're transported back to West Virginia. They're transported back to their grandmother, transported back to their big mama's house or whatever. And Larry, despite the fact that Phil the Fire is no longer in business,
It is
people
still here.
still, there's equity in that name, there's
Right,
equity in that
right.
brand, and it's because the collective support that I receive from the black community in particular, but from the community at large, and that's something that I'll always be grateful for. So I want to say to everybody who's listening, this what we're talking about today is we're trying to find solutions to make sure that everybody who has a chance
Exactly.
to
Exactly.
thrive instead of just survive. But I'm here to also just publicly say thank you, thank to everybody who still remembers me, and also people who occasionally come up to me and say, "Man, Phil, you need to reopen."
Phil,
That's just a wonderful
Phil,
feeling. I
there's one
can't.
more thing that I gotta sit here that I remember about you. I remember your relationship with your daughter. To me, that connected us in ways you have no idea. I
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
I remember that when I first was trying to connect to you, and many times in between us meeting, you said, Larry, I gotta go pick my daughter. This is the day I gotta spend time with my baby. Larry, is it okay if I bring my daughter to let you see your place? You never, ever, ever stop being a father. Thanks, Phil.
Oh, thanks, man.
All
Hey,
right.
man.
I appreciate you.
We all got that responsibility. And now that she's 21, I'm trying to do my best to be supportive of her as a woman. And
Mhm.
that's also a transition that we as fathers have to,
Oh
go
my
through.
goodness.
Go from daddy's little girl to that she's a full grown woman. I've got to be respectful and be supportive of that growth, and as she continues on her own journey, and try to help her along. So, man, no, but Larry, this is interesting. it's like as parents we have a choice. We could be either try to be the architects of our children's lives or try to be the gardeners of our children's lives. And a lot of parents try to be the architects and try to design their children's lives. And I'm here to advocate to try to be the gardener and to plant the seeds and to be there to
Whew.
fertilize and nurture and do that, because that pays off in ways that you don't understand
That
until
has
they
been one of the most disappointing things in my life. Now, I'm not going to talk about it now, but Phil, I want to invite you back because I want to talk specifically about that, about the challenges that sometimes when you're not with that child's mom, that you're faced with just trying to be a father. And we miss the target a lot of times. We don't do it on purpose, but nobody gave us a playbook on how to do and be a father or a mother. And
That is true. No, there definitely
right.
there's no how-to manual. But one of the things that I will say is that part of what has to happen as we evolve as a community, as a people, as a nation, and I'll go beyond that. But part of it is understanding that there are we could look at certain policies that took the black man out of the home, which was that was designed where a woman could get public assistance, but the man had to be out of the home. That's one
Woo!
dynamic.
How many times have you heard me say welfare was not designed for us? It wasn't. A lot of people don't know that. They want to associate that with African Americans, but it didn't start that way.
No, it didn't start that way. But the man had to come out of the house.
Right.
But the other side of it, and this is what I'll say this to all my brothers who have had the challenges of child support and things like that. That part of the dynamics is that we've got to change the narrative of the presumed parent, that the custodial parent. That's the word I'm looking for. The presumed custodial parent,
Oh, this is good.
because the presumed custodial parent in Ohio is the mother. That's
Not
got
just
to
in
change.
Ohio,
Well, I'm just saying that's all I know.
in the United
That's
States.
got to change.
Period.
It should be the presumed custodial
Who's
parents.
best
Right.
or
It
parents?
should be the presumed
Yeah.
custodial. It should be
Exactly.
It should be shared parenting from.
We
day
need to talk
one.
about that.
We
Gonna get into that.
We gonna get into
I'm
that.
gonna definitely get into that. That's
But
part of the community.
but you brought up Makai,
Yeah.
and I just want to say
Right.
that part of it is that that I did my best, and I'm still doing my best, but there are a lot of challenges that looking back that if we could get some of the elected officials talk about to change that narrative, there are a lot of things that black men face.
Come on.
All the things that
Woo.
they talk about us, black men ain't this and black men ain't that.
Putting us on milk cartons back in the day.
but the part that people don't talk about are the policies that have been put in place that sometimes
Oh my
hinder
goodness.
the efforts of the man to be a good father. When you have to fight, you're fighting the system, which is designed.
You're fighting the system. You're fighting the woman's mentality. Okay, in some cases. Okay,
yeah,
so
well,
no, it's a combination. You're fighting jealousy. You're fighting emotions. It's a lot that you're fighting.
So anyway,
Yeah.
but on that
Right.
positive note, I appreciate you saying that. But I just want to say that again to all we'll come back to this another time. But it's part of the journey that we're all on, and the hope that I the reason I really wanted to do the show with you today is that if anybody could learn anything from what I've gone through, learn from my mistakes, and learn
The truth. The truth.
that helps too.
Yeah,
The truth,
that helps. Yeah,
helps
and that's
too.
why I wanted to do it, because there was a misconception that I even had heard. And wait a minute, I stand wrong, because when I talked to you and after I had the business, I said, hell, I get it. But see, if you don't go through it, you don't know.
Right,
And I
right.
said, Phil, that was an injustice. I said, you need this. You need to tell briefly. And listen, he went into detail with me, but he's a gentleman. I'm not as so gentle. I'm not as gentle, but I'm going to keep his secrets. But I just wanted to thank you. I know you got to go. And listen, thanks again. And listen, thanks to my guy, LaRon, who's just so willing to come in and shoot this thing at a spare moment. If you guys need a good video, you wanna do a hip hop video today, I got to get his brother a shout out. Thanks again. And listen, this is going to be a 2-part show. We got Sam Silk coming on a little later. Thanks, and double thanks. See you real soon.
All right.